Mel, what's up with this happiness? How are we happy? Are we
Ye-
happy?
Maybe not really. No, not really.
Hey, friends. Hey, uh, welcome to Your Work Friends. I'm Francesca,
And I'm Mel.
and we're two HR leaders with no filter, exposing the work stuff you need to know. Mel, what are we talking about today?
New week, new headlines. Francesca, what are you talking about today?
Yeah, I'm talking about a New York Times article that came out that said employee wellness programs have little benefit study finds, and I want to talk about it. What are you talking about, Mel?
Interesting. A 2024 employee happiness trends in the US report by Kudo Board,
Hmm.
and wanted to talk through some of the stats that they shared out.
All right, well-being, happiness. Let's do it.
Let's jump in.
Let's
All
do it.
right.
All right, Mel, what's up with this happiness? How are we happy? Are we
Ye-
happy?
Maybe not really. No, not really. So recently, a report came out by Kudo Board. This is a globally adopted online appreciation platform that has tens of millions of users across companies in the US.
Well,
Uh,
what I think for
yeah,
those who've never done kudo, can
yeah.
we talk about like what it
Have you
looks
gotten
like? Because
you've gotten a Kudo board, right?
I got a kudo board, but if you've never gotten a kudo board, you probably don't know what the hell an
Oh
appreciation
yeah.
platform is.
Yeah, I'll share it. So it's one of these employer experience platforms. It's really great. Like anyone can set this up. You can go out and do it today for a teammate. But essentially, I've gotten a Kudo board for being a part of projects, for even when I've joined or left a team or a project. Kudo boards have been set up where you can essentially submit thank you for this, or really recognize and appreciate your colleagues and friends at work through the Kudo board platform. So, and
Yeah.
then share it with them, and they have it forever, which is really sweet. It's a really sweet sentiment. Because of the use, though, these tens of millions of users across multiple organizations, CUDA boards are, getting some pretty decent data.
Yeah, I literally have never thought about the data that kudo board has because yeah, you could send a kudo board for like
Yeah.
sorry about your dog or congratulations on your new job or yeah, they
Yeah,
have a ton of data.
they had a ton. And they
Oh,
they
interesting.
conducted a survey among a diverse group of 600 professionals across Fortune 500 organizations. And it also included some stats from some third party vendors as well. So it was a joint report.
Yeah.
But some of the key highlights I wanted to call out: Bamboo HR. Love them, by the way. If you can subscribe to their newsletter, they always have some really good knowledge nuggets that they share out around the HR space. Well, Bamboo HR did their own study, and in 2023, they saw a steep 9% drop in employee happiness.
Oh,
And they noted that employee happiness is declining at a rate 10 times faster than the previous 3 years alone.
well, that sucks. Yeah, we're really
I'm
unhappy.
always bringing the good news, huh?
Yeah. Oh
Just
God. Oh
jolly.
my God. Whoa.
I know. I was
That's
like, ooh,
why?
okay.
Do we have any
Um,
rationale here?
yeah, yeah. So some of the other things that they noted here was that an overwhelming majority of the respondents, 98% of them, believed that individuals would work harder and be happier if they felt more appreciated. So there is an appreciation problem happening in the working place. 90
98%.
98%
Wow.
feel like people would do better, work harder if they just felt appreciated.
Got a goddamn thank you once in a while. Is that
Yeah.
what I'm hearing?
Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for your contribution.
Oh my God.
97% of respondents agreed that receiving recognition has a more substantial impact than givers initially anticipated. So I think there's an underestimation happening around, is appreciation valued. Like, do you need to send that thank you? The answer is yes, folks, you do. And you should always send the thank you. 90% of participants from this survey reported feeling that organizations underestimate the positive effects of employee gratitude, indicating right now there's a significant gap between employee expectations and corporate practices.
Hmm.
So there is really something here. And I love working on employee experience projects and kind of digging into that and what an employee's experience is from, the time they're exploring an organization, the time they're there, through the time that they're an alumni. I think that every organization has a responsibility to make that experience a good one. And something as simple as appreciation. And it's interesting that there's a gap in what the expectations are on both ends. So, the top three most significant challenges that were faced by employees in remote or hybrid work settings was a sense of belonging, 78%,
Hmm.
communication, 68%, and burnout at 40%, with over 2/3 of the survey respondents currently working in a hybrid or remote environment. So, this reinforces that growing trends of flex work and the need for effective tools that help manage some of this employee experience stuff is critical, because remote's not going away and hybrid work is not going away anytime soon. Something for folks to pay attention to.
Yeah. I also think those are like correlated too. If you do not have a good sense of belonging, if you
Yeah.
feel like you're not clear in terms of communication too, you're going to get burnout. You just will.
I
Yeah.
think even with all of the transition during COVID, places still aren't getting it right.
No.
And they like slap on the term hybrid, but don't really do the work to understand, how do you work with hybrid teams differently than remote teams, differently than in-person teams, because it is different.
Yeah,
It is different. Bottom line, assuming common sense, but when employees feel valued, they stick around. And so,
Wait,
and
what?
yeah, they stick around, amazing.
I am shocked. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and just
It's
things,
you think it's
yeah,
common
just,
sense, but
common
like,
sense, but there's a disparity according to this report.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
if 85% of employee respondents note a culture that prioritizes belonging and happiness is critical, then
Mm.
100% of organizations should feel the same way.
There was a guy that wrote a book called The Carrot Principle. This is like 20 years ago or something.
Yeah,
And it was this whole idea of gratitude and saying thank you and how far that goes for people.
right,
I'm always surprised when people don't, because it's such an easy thing to do if you
right,
do it authentically, right? I'm not saying like, oh, thank you, but if you do it in a
right,
way that really says, hey, when you did this thing, I really saw X. And because of that, Y. And I just need you to know that because wow, right?
right.
It takes no time for the most part, but I just see more and more people saying, I don't feel valued. I don't feel a sense of gratitude. And I also see a lot more managers and leaders dropping that as one of the first things that they do. And I don't know why. I've been wondering, quite
It quite
honestly, why.
literally takes 5 seconds to
Yeah.
say, hey, I really appreciated what you did here. I don't know. These things are being forgotten. Just common sense things.
Yeah.
So
Like saying, thank you, Mel.
thank you,
Thank you.
Francesca.
Yeah.
Tell us about wellness programs in the workplace.
This conversation in the US largely started in this context of things like, do you remember this, Mel, work-life balance? It was about, oh, we have
Oh
to have work-life
gosh.
balance, right?
Yeah. And there's no such thing.
I will tell you this concept of work-life balance, then we move into well-being, then we move into things like human sustainability, right? This is morphing. It's
Right.
morphing in terms of what we're adding to this definition. It literally went from you should go for a jog on your lunch break to now being like, oh yeah, maybe we should be talking about mental health. So I
Right.
want to share this article in the context of this is an incredibly important topic to be talking about, witnessed by what you just talked about in terms of, listen, we know stress is going up, we know happiness is going down. We have to figure out this thing called work. But New York Times came out with an article this week that basically said workplace wellness programs have little benefit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I want to talk about it because on one hand, listen, we can't, and the article noted this, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because
Right.
this is a really important topic. But what I do think is really important is to talk about what really needs to change for wellness to exist in organizations.
Right. For far too long, or at least when things kicked off, it felt very much like the ownership was on the employee. Like
Yeah.
you figure, go for that jog.
Yeah.
Do some
Eat right.
meditation.
Yeah.
Do some chair yoga at lunch. You're
Yeah.
like, I
Here's
can barely eat
your
my lunch.
headspace.
Yeah.
Remember when everyone got like a headspace
Yeah. And look,
yeah.
access to those things are fantastic. I
Yeah.
still believe it's great to have those benefits, and it's nice to have those resources. And the responsibility of wellness at work is the responsibility of the organization, the team, and the individual. It's the responsibility of all three.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it's not truly embedded in your culture that this is a priority, and if in teams, leaders aren't expecting that of their full team and mirroring those practices themselves, then you're going to have an issue. Interesting puzzle to solve.
It is. It is. Listen, I encourage everyone to go out and read the article, but I want
Yeah.
to pull out a few. Let me pluck out a few nuggets that I found just interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just super interesting. The article talks about a study in the Industrial Relations Journal that looked at 90 different interventions for wellness that the majority of companies put into place. Things like apps, relaxation classes, how to do training on resilience or stress management, right? All of these things that we're all very, very familiar with. And by the way, a lot of these types of interventions are relatively easy for organizations to put in place. The wellness industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry where your company can call up XYZ company that does mental health, that does coaching, that does stress management, and they can say, here, we partnered with this company for this cost, which is typically relatively low comparatively to their profit.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. We did wellness, right? But let me talk about what this study found, because they found that some things helped, some things did nothing, and then some things had a completely negative effect, right? Which is where they're getting this idea that these programs have very little benefit. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So what helped for workers who were given the opportunity to do charity or volunteer work?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Did seem to have improved well-being. So that's something that helps.
Feels good to do good things for
Yes, it
people.
does. Yes, it does.
Fills your cup.
Here are the things that did nothing per
Okay.
this study. And I'm going to talk about this because this study is getting a little bit of pushback. But the things that did nothing were things like apps, like mental health apps, meditation apps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coaching, relaxation classes, courses in time management or financial health did not have any positive impact at all. And those things that had actually negative impact were trainings on resilience and stress management.
I have a theory.
What's your theory?
Some of that.
What's your theory? Yeah.
Because you're not building it into how people work.
Bing, 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 bing.
You're asking them to do more.
Yeah.
On top of everything else, which now becomes another thing on someone's to-do list versus this is baked into our systems and processes. This is how we work. So things like if coaching was part of your regular work week and it was integrated into how you work and other people also had this benefit, there was team coaching or individual coaching in combination, that might be beneficial. But if now it's this extra thing you need to do and make time for on top of your work schedule, on top of your family commitments, on top of just wanting to be a human being with hobbies and maybe get some sleep, yes, like that's not going to work.
You're hitting the nail on the head because here's the thing to keep in mind. If you're seriously trying to drive an employee's well-being, then it has to be about, to your very good point, working practices, right? It can't be something that is additional.
Right.
And there is a concept coming up. It wasn't mentioned in the article, but there is a concept called well-being washing that I think is something that we need to be paying attention to. And basically it's a bit of a newer term that is used when employees are presented with a false sense of support. It's saying like, look, we're giving you these things. We gave you support,
Right.
But what you didn't do is change the working practices. You didn't change the systems that were causing the stress. And what's interesting is that the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health found that 51% of employees believe their employer was guilty of well-being washing. And so when you take that into account,
That's a big number.
it makes sense, right? It makes sense that these wellness programs might seem to have little benefit because a lot of organizations aren't taking care of the systematic things that need to be taken care of. To be super fair, there was some pushback on this study that talked about that these things have little to no benefit. Again, because the systematic stuff isn't being taken care of. The study was a point in time that they really overrepresented things like younger workers and women, and that we shouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater because these things, when your systems are taken care of, these things can be really positive, and there's a lot of data to support it. But the headline for me here is, if you didn't fix your system, this stuff's well-being washing.
Yeah, you can't just slap an app into something and hope it solves all the world's problems.
Well, Mel, amazing to talk with you today, as always.
You too. This has been delightful.
Yeah. We'll be back next week with new week, new headlines. Thanks so much for joining us today. Like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can come over and say hi to us on the TikToks and LinkedIn community. Hit us up at yourworkfriends.com. We're always posting stuff on there. And if you found this episode helpful, share with your work friends. Thanks,
Bye, friend.